Coming in at number 10 now, we have the Wonka bar. There are two types of chocolate Wonka bar, the fictional one from the famous Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie, and a real one that first appeared in the 70s inspired by the fictional one. The Wonka bar would never obviously live up to how amazing the fictional one apparently tasted, but it gained quite a cult following. Then in 2005, some Wonka bars were packaged with an actual golden ticket, just like in the movies. Now this was to promote the new adaptation with Johnny Depp, but unfortunately the prize was a tour of Nestlé's factory and not Willy Wonka's, shattering kids' dreams everywhere. Perhaps that's why sales started to shrink and the Wonka bar was finally discontinued in 2010. Alright, next up at number 9 we have Gator Gum. Many of you guys will have heard of Gatorade, the drink, but were you aware they also used to make gum? Gator Gum was marketed as the gum for active people and it promised to quench people's thirst. Gatorade fans loved it, finally they had something to chew on when they weren't drinking Gatorade. It came in lemon lime and orange flavour and was around during the late 80s and early 90s. Now the problem was, when people get thirsty, they usually reach for a glass of something, a liquid, not a piece of gum. That's a shame, because Gator Gum is a great name. Coming in at number 8 now, we have Bar None. Bar None was released in 1987, described as a cocoa wafer with chocolate filling and a peanut and milk chocolate coating. Now I wasn't around then, so I never got to try this, but it sounds amazing. Many other people thought so too at the time because Bar None took off across America. And then in 1992, Hershey's made a big mistake. They changed the formula. If there's one thing chocolate bar lovers can't stand, it's when people mess with the formula. It was split into two different sticks, caramel was added, and the iconic wrapper was redesigned. Fans of the old bar said this was the main reason the Bar None became Bar Non-existent by 1997. Coming in at number 7 now, we have Shark Bites. They were small gummy candies in the shape of a shark, combining two things that all kids love: sugar and dangerous animals. Although I have heard that sharks aren't as bad as the movies have made out, but still, they came in different colours, in red, orange, yellow, purple and white, each one corresponding to a different flavour. Weirdly, the yellow shark tasted like strawberry. There's a sentence I didn't think I would ever say in my life. They were a go-to snack for kids in the 90s, but largely faded out during the new millennium. Now I did find a few articles saying that they had come back in a few stores in America and could also be bought online, but until they really bite back into the market, they're going to keep their spot on this list. Alright, next up at number 6 now, we have Astro Pops. These were launched in 1963 as cone-shaped lollipops supposed to resemble a space rocket. Now I'm not saying that making these was rocket science, but the creators were actual rocket scientists. I'm not making this up. They quit their rocket science job to make the Astro Pops and based its 3-color design on the 3 stages of a rocket launch. They came out during a time when the world was space travel obsessed. They came in cherry, passion fruit and pineapple flavour, and later on there was even a banana split and caramel apple flavour. But in 1997 they were actually sued by parents who said their son was injured by the stick of an Astro Pop. The design was then changed and Astro Pop never really got off the launch pad again after that. Sales declined and it was sadly discontinued in 2004. Coming in at number 5 now, we have the Nestle Quick Bar. Nesquik is still one of the most popular breakfast cereals in the world. They dominated the home milkshake market too. They were in kitchen cupboards everywhere in the 90s and Nestle managed to make the leap from breakfast to lunch with a Quick Bar. It was basically chewy chocolate taffy, very soft and tasted like a cross between chocolate and the Nesquik flavour everyone knew. They were eventually discontinued and these days Nestle only make Nesquik bars, which are nothing like Quick Bars, so don't let that cute rabbit fool you. Alright, moving on to number 4 now, we have the Charleston Chew. In 1925, the Charleston dance was all the rage. People couldn't get enough of it, and some clever chocolate makers jumped on the dance wagon and made the Charleston Chew bar. The dance eventually faded out of fashion, but the bar kept growing in popularity. It became a chocolate-covered vanilla taffy bar. Then in the 1970s, new flavours were brought out, such as strawberry and banana. Now I've heard the bar does still exist in a few places over 90 years since its invention, but you'd be hard pressed to find it these days in your local store and would probably have to order it online. Next up at number 3 now, we have the Desert Bar. This Hershey's chocolate bar was made in the late 1980s, but not for kids. It was made specifically for soldiers. Hershey's made it for the US Army. It was a chocolate bar that could withstand heat up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit or about 60 degrees Celsius without melting at all. 144,000 bars were shipped out to soldiers during the first Gulf War. When the war ended, Hershey's decided to sell their remaining stock to customers back in the US. They gained a pretty big cult following growing, but when the supply did eventually run out, Hershey's didn't make any more, and chocolate bar lovers had to return to the very normal kind that melt in your pocket. Boring. Alright, we're at the number 2 spot now, and we have Jumbo Nerds. A lot of you guys watching are big fans of Nerds Candy. We've talked about the Nerds Candy cereal in our discontinued cereal video, and we're not done talking about the thin fruit flavoured candy rock bits just yet. Whew, that sentence. Their appeal has often been in their handy little size, and Jumbo Nerds were exactly the same, but bigger. You'd think that just changing the size of some candy wouldn't make it a success, but people started to think, why would I eat normal Nerds when I can eat Jumbo Nerds? They're bigger. In the end though, it seemed that people felt like Nerds were getting a bit too big for their boots, and the product was discontinued. Finally now, at number 1, we have the PB Max. The PB stood for peanut butter, and to be honest with you guys, if I could bring back one discontinued item in the whole world, it might be this. Launched by Mars in 1989, PB Max were bars made out of creamy peanut butter and oats, all placed on a whole grain cookie and smothered in rich milk chocolate. Sorry. Now the label suggested you only ever eat 1 piece per serving, but that was never gonna happen. The only way you could stop me from having 10 pieces at once would be if I choked on it. Yeah, I have a bit of a problem with peanut butter. But it seems like a lot of other people did too, as this little bar racked up a whopping $50 million in sales before being discontinued because, wait for it, the Mars family who made the bar didn't like peanut butter. Disgusting. Starting off at number 10, we have Domino's Pizza Bubblegum. I am not making this one up. Domino's Pizza, most famous for making pizza, they used to make a fruit bubblegum back in the 1980s. Now when you opened it up, the bubblegum was even cut into little slices just like an actual pizza, and the small paper covering it was like an actual miniature pizza box. Now I understand why this got discontinued, obviously. It's not really the best idea, but I do want it to come back just so that we can all try it. It's mental. Coming at number 9 now, we have Summit Bars. This chocolate bar was produced by Mars between 1977 and 1984. During that time, it became a huge favourite in America. It was 2 light wafers covered in peanuts and then smothered in chocolate. Now to those of us who never got to try it, it kind of sounds like a few other bars that you can get on the market today, but from what I've read online, those who tried Summit Bars swear it was one of a kind. And I, for one, believe everything I read on the internet. Alright, at the number 8 spot now, we have Rinky Dinks. Yes, great name, great candy. They were made by the Willy Wonka company, who described them as super flavoured tiny jawbreakers. Each one had its own face, and the packets were divided into 3 different flavours: strawberry, lemon, and grape. They were first launched in 1984 and often contained match and win promotions on the back of the packaging. Now that's something I don't really see much of these days. Games and competitions on little packaging. I think we should bring them back. Or maybe they are everywhere, I don't know. Moving on to number 7, we have Super Mario Bros. Chocolate and Crisp. Who doesn't love a themed chocolate bar? Am I right? Nintendo released this edition of chocolate bars in 1990 when the world was still riding high from the release of Super Mario Bros. 5 years before. Chocolate and Crisp was the real fan favourite at the time, but they also came in 2 other variations: milk chocolate and chocolate and peanuts. Now I'd like to think that I'm the kind of person who doesn't really get sucked into this whole kind of branding thing, but yeah, I would have totally bought this one over a non-Mario themed chocolate bar. I'm sorry. Next up at number 6 now, we have Diner Sour Eggs. No, I didn't pronounce dinosaur incorrectly there. These things were around in the 80s and were made by the Willy Wonka company. They were giant sour jawbreakers in the shape of dinosaur eggs and were layered so that as you sucked on them, they changed colour. Ooh. Every single egg would be a different, unique colour combination compared to the next one. The one thing they all had in common though was just how face-meltingly sour they were. Is that a thing? Face-meltingly? Coming in at number 5 now, we have Slush Puppy Bubblegum. Just like the Gator Gum we talked about in our last video, this was a drink that was made into something you can chew on. Slush Puppies are still going strong all over the world, but during the 80s and 90s, the bubblegum version of the drink was all the rage. They came in all the flavours that the drink did too. These days, they've been discontinued across the world, but I have heard you can still get them in some parts of Canada. Hopefully our Canadian viewers can confirm this. At the number 4 spot now, we have Wacky Wafers. These were made by the Willy Wonka Wonka Candy Company. I will never get tired of saying that name. They were small circular pieces of candy that came in 5 different flavors: banana, green apple, watermelon, orange and strawberry. They were said to be very distinctive, and fans loved the blend of the chalky wafer with the sweet and strong fruit flavors. They were discontinued when Nestle bought the company, but there is a Facebook page, yes, calling them to bring them back, and there have been rumors that it might actually become a reality. So they're already out and they've returned. Ignore everything I just said. Moving on to number 3 now, we have Yummy Mummies. These crunchy candy sticks were obviously themed on ancient Egyptian mummies, and if you really think about it, you're kinda eating ancient decomposing bodies. Yeah, maybe that's just me. They came in 5 flavors: tropical punch, orange, green apple, cherry and banana. They have been discontinued for a while now, but if you really want to try them and you look hard enough online, you can find people still selling them, although I'm not sure what the sell by date is like on those. I guess they are mummies though. Coming in at number 2 now, we have King Kong and Godzilla heads. Now these were actually 2 separate bubblegum candies released at the same time, but I'm obviously going to try and include them as one here. For fans of giant city destroying monsters, this was the only bubblegum to chew on. How many other bubblegums let you bite the heads of King Kong and Godzilla? They were discontinued in the late 1980s, but with all these upcoming Kong and Godzilla movies that are going to be coming out, we might see them making a comeback one day soon. And finally now at number 1, we have Mr. T Gold Chain Bubblegum. I'm sure all of you guys know the famous Mr. T of the A-Team, but did you know he used to have his own bubblegum? Or rather, his gold chain had its own bubblegum. The strips of gum were in the shape of his famous chain, which was pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie, but the real thing that everyone remembers is actually on the packaging, where a Mr. T's speech bubble tells us he pities the fool that passes up his gold coloured chain offer on the back. Amazing. I want this product back right now. I want to win that gold chain. Into our number 10, which is Mars Delight. Now this was released in 2004 as the light version to the normal Mars bar. It was kind of like the Diet Coke, I guess, of the chocolate bar world, although much like Diet Coke, I'm sure Mars Delight wasn't exactly good for you. They were lighter, fluffier and quite popular among Mars bar fans until they were discontinued in 2008 due to just general poor sales. We're staying with chocolate though now as we move on to our number 9, and we have Kit Kat Senses. Now these were no ordinary Kit Kats. It was made up of a light crispy wafer separated into different break-off pieces, each containing a creamy hazelnut filling. It was, of course, in direct competition with Kinder Bueno. It was Kit Kat's answer to that. They wanted to get into the market of people eating chocolate bars, one piece every hour with their eyes closed in the bath. That's actually a thing. Nobody eats chocolate like that except in TV adverts. Moving on to number 8 now, we have Chew Bops. These were released in 1980 and were one of the most original candies I think I've ever seen. The packaging was a mini album cover and the record inside it was the actual bubblegum. The album covers were of real artists such as the Beatles, Rush, Elvis, the Rolling Stones or ABBA. The back even had the printed out lyrics to one of the songs from the album. Why isn't candy these days this cool? I would be chewing on this stuff all day, every day if it was still around. Yes, I am easily attracted to gimmicks. Sue me. Coming in at number 7 now, we have Garbage Candy. This one used to be huge and was just everywhere back in its heyday. The packaging was a small plastic garbage can where you would pop the lid off to reveal the garbage shaped candy pieces inside. The fruity pieces came in bottle shapes, tennis shoe shapes, soda can shapes and fish bones shapes. Why is it always fish bones in garbage cans? In every cartoon there always seems to be a fish bone in a garbage can. In real life I've never seen an entire fish skeleton in a real life garbage can. Anyway, the official garbage candies have unfortunately been discontinued, but you can still find imitations online to order. I can't promise you though that they will have fishbone shapes inside. Moving on to number 6 now, we have the Cuban Lunch Bar. Now this was a Canadian favourite back in the 70s and 80s. It was a thick slab of dark chocolate with peanuts and a dash of coconut flavour. They were manufactured in Winnipeg, Manitoba for many years, but were eventually shut down because they contained preservatives that went against new Canadian laws. Now, I tried to find exactly when these were discontinued. I'm not really too sure, but it might have been sometime around 2000 because this poster for them is boasting about new millennium packaging. Yeah, That's right, kids. There once was a time when calling anything Millennium helped it sell better. Alright, coming out number 5 now, we have Mr. Melons, an 80s classic. Big green jelly beans that tasted just like watermelon, and they only cost 25 cents for an entire box. Who can argue with that? They were first released in 1985, and I think the reason they did so well was because they offered just one single flavor of jelly bean. You know what it's like. Normally, you'll get a pack of jelly beans that come in a bunch of different flavors, some of which you like, and some of which, you don't really like too much. Mr. Melons didn't mess around with all of that. You want a watermelon flavored jelly bean? Cool. $1 for 4 boxes. It's mental. Next up at number 4 now, we have the Chicken Dinner Bar. This one is absolutely fascinating to me. This did not contain any chicken. It was released in 1923 at first, just before the Great Depression hit America. It was a chocolate bar that stood out because of its weird name and the fact that it reminded people of something a lot of people were struggling to get back then: dinner on the table. Now, it shouldn't have worked at all. It's a weird name, but it totally did. Chicken Dinner Bar took off and was sold across the US for decades. They even had a chicken dinner bar car. What a mouthful. It was finally discontinued in 1962, and Time magazine put it as the 6th most influential candy bar of all time. Coming in at number 3 now, we have Skittles Ice Cream. In 2006, Skittles released their ice cream flavored Skittles. Now, normally, you expect Skittles to taste kind of fruity, right? Well, these had to taste like ice cream, so they came in flavors like chocolate, vanilla, orange vanilla swirl, and strawberry, and even caramel ripple. Yes, at one point, caramel ripple Skittles were an actual thing. Welcome to the 21st century. Now, in many ways, these Skittles were ahead of their time. I think even Skittles knew that because they only released them as a limited edition for that year. But if they were around today, I'm not even sure if I'd eat them personally. Would you guys try them? Alright, moving on to number 2 now, we have Tart and Tinies. These were small fruit flavored pieces of candy produced by Nestle under the Wonka brand. They came in 5 distinct flavors: grape, lemon, orange, cherry, and lime. They were kind of chalky in texture and crunched in your mouth. For years in the 80s, they were Wonka's prize flavored candy pieces. They even brought out candy coated ones and chewy ones as a sort of spin-off to the main series. Due to overwhelming demand, Tart and Tinies are now available online to buy in bulk, so if you do want to try this blast from the past, you're going to need to buy a massive box. Just for you. Poor you. Alright, finally now at number 1, we have Astro Pops. These lollipops were meant to look like a space rocket. Now, you guys might laugh and say, well, clearly the people who made this have never seen a space rocket, but they were actual rocket scientists. Like, for real. They were working on a space program in California in the early 60s and decided to quit their jobs to create Astro Pops. The 3 different flavors represented the 3 different stages of an actual rocket launch. They were being sold all the way up until 2004, but I have heard rumors that the trademark for them has been purchased by a retro candy company, so there is a chance they might be released again one day. Nice. Starting off at number 10 now, we have Hershey's Kissables. How have I not mentioned these ones yet? From 2005 to 2009, Hershey's released these M&M sized treats across North America. They were coated in a thick sugar shell, and they came in red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. Now, a lot of you guys may also remember that on holidays such as Easter, Christmas, or Valentine's Day, they would also release special holiday versions. Ah, how nice of them. Alright, moving on to number 9 now, we have the real Ghostbusters Slimer Bubblegum. I'll give you 3 guesses which movie franchise this is from. It was released in 1989 as one of the many Ghostbusters related products to promote that movie. You guys may remember the Ecto Cooler from our Discontinued Sodas video. Well, now you can add bubblegum to that list. At number 8 now, we have Punkies. Punkies was a candy sold by the Willy Wonka company in the late 1980s and early 1990s. They were small, oval shaped, a bit rough around the edges, and came in a number of different sweet and sour fruit flavors. Now, they were marketed as a rebellious candy. The candy even proudly boasted on the front how ugly they were. Ooh. Unfortunately, these brightly coloured fruit treats didn't take off among the thrashing punk clubs of the 1980s, and they were discontinued. Total mystery. Coming in at number 7 now, we have Bonkers. This Nabisco candy was a big thing in the 80s. It was chewy with a tangy filler. Flavors included grape, orange, strawberry, watermelon, and the classic chocolate. I never got to try this one. It was a bit before my time, but the people I've spoken to said that the TV commercial was really what they'll always remember. Check it out.
Some folks think Bonkers is gum. They know it's candy now.
Moving on to number 6 now, we have Oompas. This is another Willy Wonka candy, first produced in 1971. Under the coating of each piece of candy was a disc that was half peanut butter and half chocolate. They also came in chocolate and strawberry flavour. As you guys might have guessed from the name and the company that makes them, these things were obviously inspired by the famous Oompa Loompas from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So if you've ever wanted to eat an Oompa Loompa, that was your chance. You missed it. Moving on to number 5 now, we have the Max Headroom candy. Max Headroom was big in the 80s, an AI character known for his wit and electronic voice. The candy that used his name was nothing to write home about really, but it remains so memorable because of the packaging. There was something quite creepy but kind of cool about eating Max Headroom candy out of Max Headroom's head. Can't get my head around that one. Okay, at number 4 now, we have the Reggie bar. This was a round chocolate bar that was made in honor of famous baseballer Reggie Jackson. The New York Yankees player hit 3 home runs in one single game in the 1997 World Series, and by the following year, the Reggie bar was on sale. It was made up of caramel and peanuts in milk chocolate and was very popular, even for people who didn't know who Reggie Jackson was. I want to try it. Coming in at number 3 now, we have Space Dust. This was such a cool candy, to be honest. It was released in 1976 by General Foods as a follow-up to the massively popular Pop Rocks. Here's a secret for you guys, it was basically just ground up Pop Rocks, but people loved it all the same. It came in cherry, punch, orange, strawberry, grape and watermelon flavour. It also crackled in your mouth. Everyone loved it. It was popular. Almost too popular though. People started to talk about it as if it was another famous powdered substance, shall we say, but I think that's a topic for another video. Okay, at the number 2 spot now, we have Wonder Ball. Those of you who live in a place where they sell Kinder Eggs will probably recognise these things. They're very similar. Both of them had an outer milk chocolate shell, except these had candy pieces inside, not a little toy. They used to though. When they were first released in 1997 in North America, they would have Disney characters, Pokemon and Winnie the Pooh inside, but people said they were a choking hazard for little kids. Now I can see why they discontinued it because of that, but come on, it's a cool little toy. Is it not worth a choking hazard? Probably not. Don't think I'm ready for kids. And finally, number 1, we have the Chocolate Bar. I know what you're thinking about that name. Very clever. I think so too. The Chocolate Bar was thick, pure chocolate. It was around in the mid to late 1970s and was made by pumping air into it as the chocolate cooled. Now this gave it a kind of Swiss cheese effect inside the bar. The holes are why it was called light, but some people just complained that there was just less chocolate and too much air. Maybe that's why sales started well for this bar but started to drop off when people realised they were basically paying for a lot of air with every single bar. Alright, starting off at number 10 now, we have Jumpin' Jack. Doritos made these. I can make a whole video about Doritos products that were discontinued that everyone wants back. They get through like 10 products a year, it feels like. Jumpin' Jack was one of them. They were cheese flavored and nothing else, specifically cheddar, Monterey Jack and Swiss cheese. You couldn't even tell how cheesy they were because the powder blended in with the actual chip. They also had jalapeno pepper powder that gave them a little bit of a kick, just the right amount. We're only at number 9 and I'm already starting to feel a little bit hungry, and now we have Smurf mini meatballs. Yes, you heard me correctly. In their spare time, Papa Smurf, not the Smurfs, used to make shaped pasta in spaghetti sauce with little mini meatballs. They whacked it in a can, kids loved it back in the late 80s, but they didn't last for too long. Some people said it was the massive amount of calories in that little can, others say the Smurfs just weren't as cool anymore. Personally, I think there was a cover-up. Yeah, where were they getting the meat for all those little mini meatballs? That's all I'm saying. Moving on to number 8, we have the Reggie bar. Reggie Jackson was a legendary baseball player in the 70s and 80s, and he didn't like the fact that another legendary baseball player, Babe Ruth, had his own candy bar in the form of Baby Ruth Candy Bar, except that had nothing to do with Baby Ruth. Now despite that, one company launched the Reggie bar, a circle of goodness with peanuts dipped in caramel and covered in chocolate. The crowd went wild. What started out as a little bit of a joke went on to become a hugely popular snack. They're all discontinued now, but I like to think that Reggie still eats one every day. Alright, next up at number 7 now, we have PB Max. PB Max was the bar for people who love peanut butter way too much but were still a little bit too embarrassed to just bring a peanut butter jar and spoon to work with them. PB Max was the most peanutty, socially acceptable thing you could get. Creamy peanut butter and oats covered a square whole grain cookie, and then the whole thing was smothered in milk chocolate. Now I don't think they came in any other flavours, I couldn't seem to find any before they were discontinued, but you know what, peanut butter lovers tend to only really have one favourite flavour anyway. Moving on to number 6 now, we have Gargoyles Exploding Pops. These were ice pops that were made by Nestle and had the popular 90s TV show Gargoyles slapped on the front of them. Now that was what obviously drew in the kids, but they stayed for the ice pops. On the outside, they were pretty normal looking, but on the inside, oh, they had a gooey center with pop rocks. That's right, when you get into the middle of one, just suddenly starts exploding in your mouth. Just like how gargoyles have a gooey center that explodes in your mouth, don't they? I don't really know what the connection was there. Don't know why they were on the front. Next up, at number 5, we have Bubble Play. I remember this one. This stuff was amazing. A cherry ice cream baseball glove hand with a little bubblegum baseball in its palm. Ah, how cute. Now I don't know about the rest of you, but I remember being a kid and the two treats in my life were ice creams and bubblegum. So you can tell why I absolutely love this one. Walls promoted it with the slogan, "I love good humor." I mean, I don't think this ice cream was funny in any way at all. Just a glove and a baseball. Maybe Walls don't have a good sense of humor, but they make great ice cream. Coming in at number 4 now, we have Carnation breakfast bars. Peanut butter and granola. What a combination. Everyone seemed to think these were the healthiest thing around in the 80s because of the granola, but yeah, they were also completely smothered in peanut butter chocolatey goodness, so swings and roundabouts. They weren't great for you at all and they had a lot of calories, but apparently they tasted great. As the years went by and more granola bars entered the market, Carnation breakfast bars started to lose their share of that market and were eventually discontinued. For real guys, check out the granola bar wars of the 80s. It was actually a real thing. Moving on to number 3 now, we have Kudos bars. These things were mental. They were granola bars. Yes, I know I've mentioned those before. Yes, they came in peanut butter like a lot of other things I've talked about, but look at the other varieties. Snickers, chocolate chip, M&M's, and variety pack. That last one might be the name of all those other flavors put together, but you get the idea. I never had them, wish I did. They apparently won the 2006 Best Taste Award. I don't know what that means. Maybe they were the most tasty thing on the planet in 2006. Kudos to them. Coming in at number 2 now, we have Frankenstuff Wieners. A lot of these are either sausage or peanut butter related, aren't they? Frankenstuffs were hot dogs stuffed with either cheese or chili, and they were sold in the US in the late 80s. The company described them as fun food that features a tunnel of cheese or chili inside a Hormel hot dog. Oh yeah, that sounds really fun. Apparently they used to get so hot the kids would end up burning their mouths on them. Don't know why that was safe to make. Maybe that's why they stopped making them at all. Alright, and finally now at number 1 we have pizzerias. Now I'm sure a lot of you guys love pizza flavored Pringles, but you should know that they weren't the first to do this. Pizzerias were little pizza tasting slices of heaven. Now you can tell they were the real deal because they have this little picture of a cheese pizza right on the front. That's quality assurance right there. Of course, as the years went on, other companies out there realized that pizza and chips were a golden formula and pizzerias were eventually discontinued. Sad. I might have to go and eat a whole pizza to make myself feel better.